Here's a compelling and detailed retelling of the biblical story of the Ten Commandments, God's blueprint for righteous living, written in a way that captivates the audience. The Ten Commandments, God's blueprint for righteous living, a covenant etched in stone, a nation set apart high upon the rugged peaks of Mount Sinai, where the heavens kissed the earth, a divine appointment was set. The ground trembled, lightning flashed, and thick clouds swirled as the Almighty prepared to inscribe His law upon the hearts of His chosen people. This was no ordinary moment. This was a revelation that would shape the destiny of a nation and serve as a moral compass for generations to come. The journey to the mountain of God. The Israelites had been freed from 400 years of Egyptian slavery by the mighty hand of God. They had witnessed the parting of the Red Sea, manna raining from heaven, and water gushing from the rock. Yet, despite these miracles, their hearts wavered. They needed guidance, not just to reach the promised land, but to live as a people set apart for God. 3 months after their exodus, they arrived at the foot of Mount Sinai. The Lord called Moses up the mountain and declared. The people trembled at the sight of the fiery mountain, but they agreed, "All that the Lord has spoken we will do." Exodus chapter 19 verse 8. Little did they know, they were about to receive God's divine law, etched in stone by His own hand. The divine encounter on the third day, thunder roared, lightning crackled, and a thick cloud descended upon Mount Sinai. The entire mountain quaked violently as a trumpet blast grew louder and louder. The presence of God was overwhelming. Then, the Lord spoke, His voice shaking the very foundations of the earth. Out of the storm, He proclaimed the Ten Commandments, His unshakable blueprint for righteous living. The Ten Commandments, Exodus chapter 20 verse 117. 1. You shall have no other gods before me. 2. You shall not make for yourself a carved image. You shall not bow down to them nor serve them. 3. You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain. 4. Remember the Sabbath day, to keep it holy. 5. Honor your father and your mother. 6. You shall not murder. 7. You shall not commit adultery. 8. You shall not steal. 9. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. 10. You shall not covet your neighbor's house, nor anything that is your neighbor's. These were not mere rules, they were the foundation of holiness, justice, and love. They defined what it meant to be God's people. Written by the finger of God, the people, terrified by the voice of God, pleaded with Moses. God summoned Moses up the mountain alone. For 40 days and 40 nights, Moses stood in the presence of the Lord, receiving the law in its fullness. Then, with His own hand, God engraved the Ten Commandments onto 2 stone tablets, a permanent testimony of His covenant. But while Moses was in divine communion, the people fell into sin and idolatry. The golden calf, a great betrayal in Moses' absence, the Israelites grew impatient. They pressured Aaron to fashion a god for them, and he molded a golden calf. They danced, feasted, and worshipped this idol, breaking the very first 2 commandments before they even held them in their hands. God's anger burned. He told Moses. When Moses descended and saw their wickedness, his heart shattered. In righteous fury, he threw down the stone tablets, breaking them. He confronted the people, ground the golden calf into powder, and made them drink it as judgment. A second chance, God's unfailing mercy. Moses, heartbroken, climbed Mount Sinai once more and pleaded for mercy. God, in His boundless love, renewed His covenant. He commanded Moses to carve 2 new tablets, and once again, He wrote His commandments upon them. This time, Moses returned, his face radiant with the glory of God, a sign that he had stood in the very presence of the Almighty. The people, humbled and fearful, repented. The covenant was restored. The legacy of the law from that day forward, the Ten Commandments became the foundation of Israel's identity. They were placed inside the Ark of the Covenant, carried through the wilderness, and later enshrined in the Holy Temple. But the law was not just for Israel, it was a moral compass for all of humanity. Even today, these commandments remain at the heart of justice, righteousness, and love. The call to obedience. Jesus Christ Himself affirmed the power of these commandments. When asked about the greatest commandment, He summarized them in 2 profound statements. This is God's blueprint for righteous living, to love Him with all our being and to treat others with justice, kindness, and truth. Conclusion. A call to live by God's law. The story of the Ten Commandments is not just ancient history, it is God's eternal call to holiness. Just as He called Israel out of slavery, He calls each of us out of sin into a life of righteousness. His commandments are not burdensome, they are a gift of love, meant to lead us into a life of peace, purpose, and divine blessing. Will you choose to follow God's blueprint? The choice is yours.